The first ever 12-team college football playoff bracket was released today, and Arizona State, as Big 12 champions, find themselves in the mix. As always, my name is Justin Lacertosa. That's publisher Hod Rubino. And Hod, especially after the Big 12 championship game, we knew that Arizona State reserved themselves a spot in this playoff bracket. We just didn't know where and when and exactly where they'd be seated, but they're slotted in at number 4, which obviously is huge for the program, especially given the expectations coming into this year. But given, the teams that they've beaten, the resume that they've built up, it could be looked at as sort of a disappointment.
Yeah, I agree, Justin. I think there is definitely an element of a bag of mixed goods with this announcement. It's great that Arizona State is in the playoffs, first and foremost. As we said many, many times before, for a team that got picked dead last in a 16-team Big 12 in the media preseason poll, to capture the championship and to earn a playoff berth as a result of that is absolutely remarkable, and that is something that should be celebrated. Then you look at, as they say, the Devils is always in the details, and that's where I'm not going to say you have a blanket effect, but it is disappointing when you look at what this playoff berth really actually does mean. First of all, Arizona State is ranked number 12th in the playoff rankings. So, in a sense, they are the worst team that is part of this 12-team field. Now, I know it's kind of paradoxical to say that because they won the Big 12 championship, and because of that unbelievable accomplishment, they are ranked number 4, which means they have a first round bye, which means that they begin the playoffs in the quarterfinals rather than playing a first round game. So that is definitely something to celebrate. And as we know, that was only thanks to a dramatic Clemson win over SMU in the ACC championship, a game winning, field goal as time expired from 56 yards out is what put ASU in that field of 4 that does have the first round bye. So again, it's a great accomplishment. It's just a shame that a lot of people had to wait until about, I don't know, 10, 11 o'clock at night, depending on which time zone you were, to find that out and actually celebrate that. And the other side of the equation here is that Arizona State is ranked number 4, and thus is going to play in the Peach Bowl. They're going to play the winner of Clemson and Texas, who are going to meet on December 21st. But Boise State, the Mountain West champion, is not only ranked above them, but guess what? They get to play in a stadium that's about 30, 35 miles away from Tempe, in State Farm Stadium in Glendale, Arizona. So that's obviously very frustrating for folks that definitely did want to attend this historic playoff game that Arizona State's going to be part of. But obviously traveling to Atlanta versus traveling to another city in Maricopa County is really night and day in terms of all the aspects involved in that. So I don't know if it's really, too much of a damper, and what I'm conveying right now, and I didn't do a great job conveying it earlier on Twitter, is that, it's something that I think the players and the coaches really are not giving it too much thought. But I know some of the people covering the team, like myself, definitely ASU fans, are definitely upset that ASU is just squeaking in. The playoff committee technically sees them as the worst team in the playoffs. So now suddenly winning a Power 4 conference championship doesn't really mean a whole lot. I mean, sure, it'll give you a first round bye, but you can't even play in your backyard, even though you are you definitely had the resume to back that up compared to the team that was ranked right above you. And like we said, I mean, Boise State, you can't compare the strength of schedule, and you certainly can't compare the championship game performance they put forward on their home turf, not scoring any points in the second half, only winning by 14 points over UNLV, a team that was ranked and still is ranked lower than Iowa State, and Iowa State is at the same team that ASU beat on a neutral field, and didn't really beat them. Really, I would say we routed them. So, it's, I guess at this point, it is what it is. And again, maybe it's just the media and the fans that are paying more attention to this, or harping on this more than the coaches and the players. And that's great. That's the way it's supposed to be. We saw a video of the team celebrating that announcement, and that's exactly the way it should be. So Arizona State being number 4 getting that first round bye. That's at least some measure of respect that they have. But the chip on the shoulder, the underdog mentality, Arizona State loves it. Guess what? I think they still got it right now, just because of all the devils in the details elements that I mentioned.
Yeah, and it's a bit of an interesting time, especially given that Arizona State is now preparing for a playoff game, but also the transfer portal opens up tomorrow, and a bit of an unforeseen situation for ASU, given again the preseason expectations, but still definitely something that you got to look for. And Kenny Dillingham said earlier that he tells all of his players, "We're looking to sign someone better than you at all times." So, how do you think ASU could sort of navigate the challenge of both preparing for a game like this and also the transfer portal?
Yeah, I mean it's what I would call champagne problems, and sure, Arizona State did not anticipate that at all back in July, August, to be in the position that they are right now. Like, oh my gosh, we got to prepare for a quarterfinals playoff game and still navigate the portal, still bring players on for visits, and still have practices going on, and make some really tough personnel decisions. But I think it's a problem that Arizona State and the other 11 teams in the field are gladly going to be happy to be dealing with right now. The transfer portal is going to open tomorrow, December 9th. ASU obviously, does have prior knowledge of some of the players that are planning to enter the portal. And by the way, I mean, you do see a lot of players prior to the 9th saying they're going into the portal, but they officially cannot be in the transfer portal database until December 9th. But ASU, just like any other team out there, is not exactly blind or deaf to knowing what to expect in the portal. I mean, sure, there could be some surprising names, if not tomorrow, later this week. But nonetheless, ASU does have a good plan in what they want to address. Kenny Dillingham talked about getting probably a couple wide receivers, getting a couple offensive linemen, trying to find some kind of replacement to running back Cam Scadaboo. Talk about something that is much easier said than done. And on the defensive side, he wants a defensive end. He wants to land a defensive tackle. Depending on what departures may or may not take place at safety, that's another position that is going to be looked at. I know Kenny Dillingham did not mention the kicker position earlier in his press conference, but there's no doubt in my mind that ASU is going to seek a kicker in the portal as well. So it's really not too many puzzle pieces to fit compared to last year, and definitely not compared to 2 years ago when there was even a more massive roster turnover than this past season. Kenny Dillingham said that on paper, 35 of the 44 players in the two deep on offense and defense are set to return. So if the majority of them, let alone the vast majority of them, do return, that's probably less worries to actually have in the transfer portal. But what all throughout that, like you said, Justin, players that are preparing for a quarterfinal playoff game, knowing that they're going to see players during those practices that might be the replacement in 2025. So it is kind of an interesting dynamic going on there for sure. And if nothing else, I think it would actually motivate the players that are returning, or at least planning to return, that even though you got this official visitor on the sideline standing just 10 feet from you watching you practice, that you can really put your best foot forward and really make sure that you convey to the coaches that your place is on the team, let alone on the two deep. So it's definitely going to be an interesting. I'm not going to say minefield to navigate, but definitely it is a situation that's going to have its share of challenges. Also, keep in mind that as opposed to the old school bowl game, you're right now preparing for an opponent that you just don't know who it's going to be, because Clemson and Texas are only meeting on December 21st. And there's obviously going to have to be some portion of the practices where you're just really preparing for both teams' offenses, both teams' defenses. Again, and it's no different than the other three teams that are in the top four in the bracket. So it's not an issue that's unique to ASU. But I kind of doubt that any coach around the country has really been tasked with that with that dilemma. Unless you were playing, I guess in the semifinals, not knowing who you're going to meet. But I think then you really had more of that tunnel vision, just focusing on your semifinal opponent, only worrying about the opponent in the finals later on. So we'll sit back here. first week of January to see how successful ASU was or was not in their preparations. But again, I think it's just a set of challenges that any team would absolutely welcome.
Yeah, and you just mentioned Arizona State on January 1st in the Peach Bowl will be going up against the winner of 5th Texas and 12th Clemson, and that's a little just over 3 weeks out from this date. So a
Mhm.
lot of time to prepare for whichever team comes your way. And Kenny Dillingham sort of laid out the structure of practices and kind of how that's going to look leading up to that date. So what does that structure look like, and how do you think that could get ASU as well prepared as possible going into this game?
Well, tonight on Sunday, the team does have a banquet, and I got to imagine the vibe in that banquet is going to be like no other when you're coming off a Big 12 championship, when you're coming off a playoff berth, being routing Iowa State. There's going to be definitely a lot of smiles and good times in that room. Starting tomorrow, the team is going to be off until I believe Sunday of next week. I thought it was kind of interesting how Kenny Dillingham said, "Yeah, we're going to let them, go back home, listen to their friends and family, just saying how great they are. And when they come back next week at the facility, we're going to remind them, hey guys, you're still the underdog. You still have a chip on your shoulder because the only reason you're in the playoffs is because if you won the Big 12 championship game. Oh, and by the way, even though you absolutely dominated Iowa State, oh, what did it result? You don't even get to play in your backyard in the quarterfinals. You have to go all the way to Atlanta. So I think that sometimes maybe Kenny Dilling has to try hard to find those motivating factors, but I think really those motivating factors speak for themselves. So I think the players might come back all happy and joyful from their just about 1 week vacation back home, and then it's really back to business and really back to playing the underdog role, playing that role where you still have to defy the critics, still prove the skeptics wrong. It's a role that it served ASU very, very well all throughout the season. So maybe it's a good thing that ASU was not ranked number 3. They're not playing in the Fiesta Bowl. And when you look at the playoff rankings, they're actually considered to be the worst team in the playoffs, even worse than Boise State. So maybe those are some elements that do work in their favor. Another thing I have to keep in mind is that usually in bowl practices, the majority of those sessions are really devoted to the younger players to develop them, to give them more reps, really make sure that they're ready for the following season, make sure that they're just coming in more prepared into spring practice before you know it. It's going to be here in March. But Kenny Dillingham said that sure, you can take that approach maybe for the first few days, but at some point, you just have to really have the sessions be more veteran led, more veteran dominated. And again, to what I said earlier in our conversation, not exactly even knowing like who you're preparing for. You're preparing for Clemson or preparing for Texas, and maybe there are some aspects of both of their offenses, both of their defenses that you can just really duplicate and prepare the same. But obviously, each team has its own intricacies, own nuances for their scheme. So that's something that even with a veteran-led session rather than a younger player-led session, that's something that you're going to have to deal with. But that's what ASU is going to do. It looks like they might leave for Atlanta right after Christmas Day and be there just under a week. They're going to have obviously a lot of events, as you can imagine, leading up to the bowl. This is definitely one of the biggest bowls in the country, and obviously not only really hosting the quarterfinals, but ironically also hosting the finals. So ASU was definitely hoping that that's not the last time they're going to see Mercedes-Benz Stadium in Atlanta in the year 2025. But yeah, that's basically the schedule that does lie ahead. On the one hand, really exciting. On the other hand, definitely some challenges to navigate. But I don't think ASU would want to be anywhere else right now. And I'm sure a lot of teams around the Big 12, around the country, would love to be in their shoes.
Well, Arizona State with an opportunity to compete for a national championship in the first ever 12-team college playoff football bracket. As always, my name is Justin Lester Tosa. That's publisher Hold Rubino. To stay locked in on all the coverage as ASU prepares for this game, go to DevilsDigest.com. Follow Devils Digest on Twitter at Devils Digest. Thank you guys for watching. We'll talk to you guys soon.